Hey guys, I wanted to pop in for a bonus video today to share some middle grade recommendations with middle grade March coming up next month. I wanted to kind of go through some of the books that I read in the last year that were middle grade that ended up being some of my favorites that I wanted to recommend to you as you are preparing your middle grade March TBR, whether you're following the prompts or not. If you don't know what middle grade March is, I will leave the people that are running that, their channels down below so you can check that out. I will be sharing my middle grade March TBR in my next video. I've got some fun things planned for that, but first I wanted to give some recommendations, and I've tried my hardest to break these down into, I've got mystery, sci-fi, fantasy, historical fiction, and like contemporary-ish. I'm not sure actually on some of the genres of some of these, but I'm trying to break it down the best I can. So the first one is one that I kind of don't know which category to put this in, but it is Winterborn Home. This is a series. I think the first one is called Winterborn Home for Vengeance and Valor, and then Mystery and Mayhem, but I always get the order of those mixed up. This is a series by Ali Carter that is so hard to explain. We start out with a couple of orphans that are brought to Winterborn Home, and like some sketchy things are going on, and there's a lot of mystery, but so much is revealed throughout. I don't know how much I can say. I had a lot of fun listening to the audiobooks in the last year. I think at the time there's 2 books out, but I'm pretty sure the series is going to continue. And then I have 2 other ones here that are like definitely in the mystery category. The first one is Case Closed. This is the first book, Mystery in the Mansion, but this is a like interactive choose your own adventure mystery where you try to solve things and there's different options as to where to go. So it says if you want to, you get your background of the book at first, and then if you want to ask more about this one thing, turn to this page. If you want to see the first clue of the treasure hunt, turn to this page. It has actual puzzles throughout. So like this one has a word ladder. And then this one has like a box puzzle, and so on and so forth. In this one we follow 3 characters, and there's the 2 kind of main ones and then a little brother. And honestly, the little brother drove me nuts. I was reading this with my kids. They love the little brother. But I think just as a parent, as an adult, I wasn't a fan, but my kids loved it. And we own the second book in this series, but I haven't continued on. But it was fun to do like a choose your own adventure kind of thing. And then my other mystery series is Premeditated Myrtle. This is the Myrtle Hardcastle mystery series. There are so far I think 3 books in the series out, and it is about a girl named Myrtle Hardcastle who likes to solve mysteries, and her little oh never mind, that would be a spoiler of something that happens. I won't say it. In this first book, I think it's her neighbor that dies, and Myrtle Hardcastle reminds me a lot of Aggie Morton. A lot of similarities where we've got Aggie and her friend Hector. We've got Myrtle and her, what is she? It's kind of like her tutor or something that kind of helps her out along the way. So these are murder mysteries, middle grade murder mysteries, and I've really enjoyed the series and also think it's really good on audio. One of the things I really like in books, especially middle grade books, I find are like really funny / maybe kind of pointless but interesting footnotes. So I found a random one on this page. It said, in the actual book it says 10 shillings. That would certainly be a nice cushion in my laboratory fund. And then here the footnote says, I was saving to buy more professional chemistry equipment. The boys' own chemistry set I had bought had proved to be a disappointment. I like those little, I don't know, little bits of humor. In here there's obviously some kind of, the one character says, she'll turn up, the Munna Wurrit. And here it says, Mr. Ham was from Yorkshire, where they spoke a language that was not exactly English. This translated as, you mustn't worry. I think that's fun. So I've enjoyed this series so far. And then moving on into what I'm gonna call sci-fi genre, kind of. The first book is The Strangers. This is a trilogy. It has to do with alternate dimensions. We follow 3 characters who are Chess, Emma, and Finn, siblings, and they find out one day when they come home from school that 3 people with the same names as them and the same birthdays as them have gone missing. Shortly after that, their mom also goes missing, and they're trying to find their mom, and weird things keep happening. I won't say too much. This was a fun trilogy. I especially liked the first book. And I'm putting this down as sci-fi. I think it's an alternate history book, but it has sci-fi feel, so I'm going with it. And this is York. Book 1 is called The Shadow Cipher. This is a book with a lot of like puzzles going on as well. So we follow twins and their friend Jamie. They live in an apartment and it's going to be demolished. They live in a world where years ago there was another set of twins called the Morningstar Twins, and they changed a lot of things. It's very like steampunk but alternate history, but it's very interesting, and I find this one very hard to explain. But they are trying to save their apartment and meanwhile also uncovering a bunch of mysteries. Okay, next up I have fantasy, and then I have three books that I don't own that I wrote down so I didn't forget. The first one is The Scourge by Jennifer A. Nielsen. This is kind of like there's a world where there is a disease called the Scourge, and no one wants to get it, but our main character gets sent away to this island where everyone that gets the Scourge goes, and there are some unexplainable fishy kind of things happening there, and she tries to get to the bottom of it. It's a really good story about friendship, and I really enjoyed that one. I've pretty much enjoyed all my Jennifer A. Nielsen books that I've read so far. And then we have The Extremely Inconvenient Adventures of Bronte Meadowstone, one of the longest titles. This is like a fun fantasy story where our main character, her parents died at some point, and she has been put on this adventure to give gifts to all of her aunts, if I remember correctly, or relatives. She has a bunch of relatives. She has to go to their houses and drop stuff off. And there are different fantastical little creatures that go along, and I don't know, it was fun. I went into that one expecting nothing, and I really enjoyed it. And then the other one is The Barren Grounds. This is a indigenous fantasy story where we start by following some foster siblings that are in a home, but then it's kind of like a portal fantasy. They get sucked into another world, very Narnia-esque, and all of a sudden they're in a world where there are creatures that talk, and it's interesting. It involves some of the indigenous like history or like folklore along with it, and I really enjoyed it. I think it is part of a series. I believe the second book has already come out, but I haven't read it yet. Next up in my fantasy series, the last book here, or fantasy section, is Lockwood & Co. The Screaming Staircase. This is set in London, England, and specifically London, and it's in a world where there are ghosts that kids can see. As you get to a certain age, you stop being able to see ghosts, and our main characters are part of an agency that gets rid of ghosts from homes, so only kids can do this because they're the only ones that can see the ghosts. And in here we've got Lucy Carlisle, and then she joins the Lockwood & Co. agency to get rid of ghosts. It's an interesting one. I personally don't plan on continuing with this series, but I really enjoyed the first book. Okay, and then I've got two books in the historical fiction section here. I do not read nearly as much historical fiction as I feel like most people on BookTube, especially people that also like middle grade, but I got two books here. The first one is Stella by Starlight. I read this one quite a while ago now, but we follow a girl who lives in North Carolina, and I don't remember the exact year, but we're in the time of the Ku Klux Klan. Ooh. And one night she's out walking somewhere and she sees kind of like a meeting going on, and I think they're burning something. And yeah, this was an interesting look. Like I said, I don't read a ton of historical fiction, so when I do, I generally like it because I feel like it teaches me a lot about history, and I feel like this one was really well written. Next up is a book I just finished recently, and this is Until Tomorrow, Mr. Marsworth. This is set during the Vietnam War, and our main character is a girl named Rini, and she is a paperboy, new to town, trying to get to know people, so she sends this one man on her paper route a letter because she never sees him, and they end up kind of like being pen pals throughout the summer. He is a recluse, he doesn't leave his house, and a lot goes on in this book. Yeah, it's during the Vietnam War. She's trying to get her oldest brother out of having to fight because she doesn't want him to die, and so she's trying to be a pacifist because then he doesn't have to fight necessarily, but she's the kind of person that solves problems with her fists, so it's an interesting time for her. Okay, and then I've got 3 I'm putting it in contemporary-ish. The first one is a book called Alone. It's probably not the right category for it. This is a free verse novel where a girl wakes up and everyone in her town is gone. And it's very much like a survival story, which I don't normally like, but so well done. I'm trying to think of what category would have fit better under it. Probably this one, because it's very modern, but different. Yeah, so it's her time trying to figure out how to survive with everyone gone and trying to figure out where everyone's gone. Really, I can't say much more than that, but I really enjoyed it. And then my last 2 books here are by the same author. The first one is Forever or a Long, Long Time. I don't remember if I recommended this one in last year's recommendation video. If I didn't, I must have read it like right after. This is the story of siblings that were adopted out of foster care, and we follow them as they try to figure out why they have the trauma that they have, as they try to go back and see the different foster homes they've been in and how they got into foster care to begin with, try to figure out their history and how that has affected them. This hit me so hard when I was reading it. It's so well written. This book and the next one I would say are written and I think marketed as middle grade books, but I'd be careful at like what age you put this into a middle grader's hands, because it's really heavy content. So there's this one, and then the other one is by the same author. This is My Life with the Liars, and this is a book about a girl who is removed from a cult and then dealing with the trauma of how she has been believing a lie the entire time. She thinks she's with the liars. You know, it's all that brainwashing and who are the true liars, and there's so much that goes on. So highly recommend these 2 books, but maybe not necessarily for middle grade readers, or at least not young middle grade readers. So those are my middle grade recommendations, books that I've really enjoyed in the last year that have been middle grade. And then in my next video, I'm going to be doing my middle grade pile of possibilities. I'm going to be filming that right after this, but if you have some suggestions for middle grade books that you think I would like, let me know. I may or may not stick to my pile of possibilities throughout the month. We'll see.